to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. First thing we're going to do is go through the minutes of November and December. Everybody get a chance to look at those online?
Yeah, I don't have any issues. I'll make a motion that we pass both the November and the December meeting minutes as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. First course of order is old business, 40 Main Street. Schematic plan discussion.
Well, if I may, I just want to give a little context. I was looking through the application materials that that the applicant had submitted, and I found an issue in that in the shoreline zoning ordinance, the maximum, I put it on, it's in the planner's report. The maximum density in the commercial district of the shoreline zoning is 1 unit per 10,000 square feet of lot area. Which is similar to what's in the land use ordinance, except in the C1 district in the land use ordinance, it's just 10,000 square feet minimum lot area. That's it. So I think it's about 0.3 acres is what the lot is that the building's on.
Yeah, it's roughly 13,000 square feet. So yeah.
Yeah. So it works out to like basically 1.3 units are permitted on there. And I was looking to see if there was anything in there that allows for more density. I believe that because it's on sewer and water, that the town can allow more. We could have an ordinance that says, for example, in Newcastle, their ordinance basically says in their village center district, whatever it is, that we're going to defer that as long as you're on sewer and water, we're going to defer to what's in the land use ordinance as far as minimum lot size and density. Our ordinance doesn't say that, so it doesn't really, I don't think it's going to help this project, but it may be something that the town wants to consider looking at because there's no our land use ordinance is actually less strict than the shoreline zoning in this, and the shoreline zoning doesn't have to be as strict as it is. We may want it that way, but it's just it's an issue that to try and get 11 units onto that property, the shoreline zoning it doesn't permit it right now. So
But there already are some units.
I believe there's 2 currently.
Yeah, there's actually 3. So there's 2 up on the second level and there's 1 in the lowest level. Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
So there's always, existing nonconformities, legally existing nonconformities anyway. You're allowed to maintain, you're allowed to continue. And I'll have to see what the exact language in the shoreline zoning is, but basically it's like you're not really allowed to expand a nonconformity. But I think so that's the issue. And I mentioned this to Dan in an email a couple of days ago when I found it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and
it's a hurdle.
I think to expand upon my thoughts on what you're saying, Michael, is it's like an existing conformity, if that's how it can be described. And so I wonder if there's any aspect to approvability, waiverability, whatever the right term is, in the sense that it's an existing use, like it has 3 units already. The project is proposing not to expand the building in any shape or fashion. Basically, to get to the 11 units, it is to renovate completely within the confines of the existing footprint and the existing building. So it doesn't necessarily increase the density that's already there from a building point of view. It does increase the density, I guess, from the dwelling unit definition, obviously, right? And that's where the the wrinkle is. So thinking about it further, just wondering if there's any pathway to consider going to 11 units based on it's a project working within the confines of the footprint. It's a very developed site already with the building and the parking. So it doesn't really change, quote unquote, anything kind of from the neighborhood or the impervious or the context, or it's simply kind of for better for worse, like a mathematical restriction at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't know if there was any pathways the board might consider that way.
Yeah.
I don't believe, and I know I mentioned this in one email to you, Michael, I don't believe conditional use kind of applies because it's very dimensionally driven. There's not a lot of wiggle room that way, right? If I understand correctly.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about maybe existing non-conforming, continued the use, but expand the units, you know, under the auspice of the project, not really changing the exterior of the building footprint. So that's where my head is at right now. Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, right here, I'm looking at on the shoreline zone and under non-conformance.
Mhm.
And the purpose of the intent of this ordinance is to promote land use conformities, except that non-conforming conditions that existed before the effective date of this ordinance or amendments thereof shall be allowed to continue, subject to the requirements set forth in section 12, except by otherwise provided in this ordinance. A non-conforming condition cannot be permitted to become more non-conforming.
And
I mean, that's pretty black and white compared to what you've already got there.
and I think, yeah, that's, I think that the town needs the housing, and I don't think this is a bad project. I feel like if there's
I don't think it's a bad project
Right.
either, but
Yeah, no,
that's pretty black and white.
that's, so I'm looking for some way that we can, that it could be allowed, but at the end of the day, like the ordinance is what rules. So I think that you're right. If the ordinance did like worked on some kind of floor area ratio or building area or footprint, then you're not expanding the building, you're not expanding the floor area ratio or the footprint or in any way. So you're certainly not making, which in this case I don't think is non-conforming anyway. I think you build that building again. The problem is that the density, the number of units is already more than what's allowed, and I think that adding more units would be more non-conforming. That's something that the board can decide if that's how you feel, whether adding more units within the same building, increasing the density basically is expanding a non-conformity. That's would be my interpretation of the ordinance. So anyway, having individual, I think that the number of individual units is I think that unfortunately the shoreline ordinance, as unclear as it may be generally, that here it's fairly clear on this. There is something, and I don't know, like I mentioned this to you, that
Sure. Yeah.
there's other options that I think is that the land use ordinance certainly contemplates, like having like almost like, what are they, like an inn where basically everybody has their own room, their own bedroom, maybe even their own bathroom, but doesn't have their own kitchen, or own bedroom and kitchen and doesn't, they share a bathroom, whatever it is, bed and breakfast kind of situation, where those really aren't units, at least the way that like an inn would be defined, because they don't have the bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom.
So then, I know, but once you get above a certain number, you have to have a full sprinkler system and, there's a whole nother set of.
Yeah, there's
requirements.
building code and stuff, which the issue with that, I would have said, oh, well, maybe you can do this. This is allowed under, except shoreline zoning doesn't address kind of boarding houses, inns, other things like that. So it's something that is unfortunately kind of a weird.
Yeah, we That's defined as congregate living in the building code.
Building
right?
code.
And it's an interesting idea, which I appreciate. And it might be a pathway that the owner could consider, because at the end of the day, these units are not necessarily, it's a mix of studio and like one bedroom, like in studios, like in the 450, 500 mark, and the one beds are like in the 750 mark. So they're not by any definition luxury apartments or anything. They're, for lack of a better way of saying it, basic housing.
Mhm.
But a congregate living approach, in addition to maybe preserving the 3 units that are there, might be something they might consider. And I haven't spoken to them about it, but
Yeah.
that's a potential pathway to develop the project, right?
Right.
Yeah, because essentially that takes, like you just said, Michael, it takes out the kitchen and maybe the bathrooms per unit.
Hmm.
And that's what starts to define a dwelling unit, is my understanding, right? So you turn it into shared bathrooms and shared
Well,
kitchen
it's
space.
it's just the kitchens.
Or
That-
just the
be.
kitchen?
just the
Yeah.
Oh,
kitchens. You
okay.
have separate bathrooms, but it's just the kitchen.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And that's,
And
this is,
that could be an interesting solution.
this is
A
the,
common kitchen.
the way that dwelling units is defined in shoreline zoning. You could have, what, you
100
could,
bathrooms.
right. I mean, you can have the things that have an impact on land use, number of bathrooms, the number of people living there, right? If you had a 20-person household, you could have 20 bathrooms in there, as long as it's all together and shares, the doors don't.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a weird way that they regulate it. So just like there's different ways to go about regulating things, and they chose, dwelling units without maybe necessarily defining it super clearly. Anyway, I think that the issue that came up is that building, which already has 3 units in it, which is, I don't see any real planning issue with that. The ordinance really, if it was to be knocked down and redeveloped, wouldn't allow more than 1 unit on that site because of shoreline zoning, which is much less than what would be allowed in which is much less than is allowed in the land use ordinance currently for that district. So that's something that we probably should address. And I think I mentioned that to you. Knowing the speed of, land use ordinances amendments and things, it's probably not going to help you anytime soon. We're going to be talking about the impact of LD 2003, which shoreline zoning still is going to supersede that. So anyway, that's
Is
a
it-
little separate.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
I just. Most of the description of non-conforming uses in the shoreline zoning ordinance involves expansion, physical expansion of a building. Under Part D, change, non-conforming uses, change of use, it says an existing non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use, provided that the proposed use has no greater adverse impact on the subject and adjacent properties and resources, including water dependent uses in the commercial district.
Yeah.
Like the change of use would be adding more apartments.
Well, I think that would be an expansion of a use, not a change of use. I think
Change of use from a law office to an apartment.
that would be, yes. I mean, that would be a change of use. But I would think that the impacts, those are going to have 2 different impacts. I would think if you were changing from like a law office to like a medical office, like a therapist's office or something, like, okay, those might be considered 2 different uses, but they're gonna have the same impact. Especially, there you're going from like commercial law office to residential. I think that would be a change of use, but that would be a more significant one. It should be, I also would like to note that mixed use is also non-conforming use in the downtown, in the C1 and the land use law. You're not supposed to have not allowed to have new mixed use buildings down there, which is something we might want to talk about as well. So
Wow,
yeah,
really?
yeah, I found that recently. And so even before it was already non-conforming, but the non-conformity there was that it was mixed use. So, you know, in some ways this would actually make it more conforming because it would not be mixed use. It would just be residential, but the number of units is going to make it, you know, more non-conforming. And so that's all land use. That's not the shoreland zone, but
that's the exact kind of line of thinking I was looking at, Jenny. Whether or not the board had any leeway there or not. But I understand hearing from Michael, probably not, but that was kind of the line of thinking there.
yeah, in the shoreline zone also, like the site plan currently allows for a decent amount of flexibility. The land use doesn't really say anything about waivers, and the shoreland zoning is pretty inflexible. That, you know, they outline things about they do address, they make it pretty clear, like where the board has some discretion in, you know, moving things back to the greatest extent possible outside of a setback, but it's not, I don't think it really allows for just waiving of certain standards. So it
Is
tends to be
it-
a strict one.
Is it correct in saying the conversation about the congregate approach is still something that we can discuss?
I don't
Michael, or-
see any issue. The issue is going to be that the shoreline zoning just doesn't even contemplate it. So
Hmm.
I think it would be easy enough to say that since it doesn't say that it's not allowed, and you look at our existing land use ordinance that I believe, you know, they might call them boarding houses or whatever they are. There's bed and breakfasts are allowed in there, like inns and things like that are allowed. And it's clearly separate. It's not a dwelling unit. That I think there would be some, I think
Right.
there's at least an argument to be made
Like
that,
strict definition, right? Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but the issue here that I found with at least that I'm seeing, and certainly the board, you let me know if it doesn't sit right with you, is the shoreline zoning, all, you know, it's 1 unit per 10,000. And that even is kind of a being lenient compared to the other districts, which is like 30,000 square feet per dwelling unit. So, but I think that congregate, I mean, I think that's what the building code calls it, but
Yeah, yeah, right.
for shoreland and for land use site plan, I think that I don't think it's unreasonable to explore that.
Okay.
Unless the board feels differently.
My take on it is, number one, there is a tremendous need for more housing and reasonable housing. And that fits. Up until this point, well, the building is not expanded. It's the same building, you know, in the shoreline zone. And any expansion in terms of promoting the non-conforming aspect of it, that's not, you know, an issue here. The tough thing, of course, is it says in black and white, you know, so many units per. So then if there is an avenue like this congregate, you know, housing, I certainly would support it. And I would support, you know, chasing that as far as we can under the present ordinance to allow it to happen.
Great. I think that's
Yeah, great. I appreciate it.
positive.
You think MMA, or, I mean, would there be someone we could ask? Just sort of
Might be able to ask it, ask them what exactly.
just looking at our ordinance of something,
Yeah, I mean, we can,
expansion of use versus expansion. Change of use versus, you know, expansion.
yeah,
Yeah.
whether this would be an expansion of a nonconformity by adding units. We,
I think that would be a valid question.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's the
that's fair.
fundamental question. And
Yeah,
I
I
just
think-
think we need another
But it,
set of eyes on it, kind of.
yeah, but I mean, it's between this and what I read about the non-conformance, it looks pretty black and white to me.
It does.
It really does. And I
I
know
can
you can
ask-
argue all through this on a whole different bunch of points. But between this and that, it's like not seeing it.
Well, and the only impact that it's really gonna have is can the public utilities handle the
Mhm.
1 to the 11? And if that's the case, then that's an easy fix with a letter from the sanitary district saying, yes, we can support that number in that area.
Mhm.
But other than that, it has no impact on, as Wilder mentioned, we're not changing the footprint.
Mhm.
We're strictly doing inside remodeling to make it an 11 unit. And again, the only impact is sewer and water.
Mhm. Well,
Rubbish.
Well, and parking.
there would,
and
yeah.
cars. I mean, there's going to be impact.
We talked about that last time, is they don't have to have parking spaces down there. They can go to the public parking.
Right.
I think
So-
my question on the impact is not that the town couldn't, and that the downtown or the neighbors couldn't handle the impact. It's, if we're setting our density at basically 4 units an acre, which is about 1 unit per 10,000 square feet, that is a certain look, feel, whatever. It's certainly far below what exists already in the downtown. But it's like, if the ordinance says that that's what the standard is, I mean, it's not going to go into, oh, this is how many people are coming and going, and this is, the other impacts that are coming from having that. But, you can't, I don't think that going and just saying, okay, well, if the sewer district says it's okay, and the planning board says the parking's fine, then we can kind of waive it, because there's so many other things that kind of go along with that. But I think that I don't think we can waive it for one project, but I do think that this is exactly the kind of conversation we should be having about, do our ordinances, and we're going through the comp plan as we speak, but even just generally, do our ordinances reflect and promote the kind of development, housing, whatever that the town wants? And I think that this may have just been an oversight, because if you look at the land use ordinance, it clearly allows, there really isn't a density restriction as long as you have at least 10,000 square feet. This actually more lines up, the commercial district in the shoreline zoning ordinance lines up better with the C2, which is essentially 1 unit per 10,000 square feet. So it's almost like it imposes the C2 regulations in the downtown, because most of the downtown is in the shoreland, just because. So it might be, so anyway, that's a conversation we should have to make sure the ordinances are consistent. But I think there's other things that we would need to consider if we were going to say, yeah, we can waive that, or we can ask, certain people if they don't mind, if it's an issue to them, like the sewer district, because there's just going to be so many other things. Probably some of the impacts would be good. There's gonna be more people living downtown going to those businesses, right? It could be like that. So, it sounds to me like the board is, correct me if I'm wrong, is supportive of going, finding some option for housing there, whether it's the inn, rooming house, whatever that is, congregate living
Yeah.
arrangement. But that, like, the shoreland zoning ordinance just, it doesn't
the black
allow
and white,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
I appreciate the board's time and thoughts. Yeah.
I guess, see what direction you want to go in, and we can talk. There's other, we were talking about, for the board's benefit, we were talking about, erosion control and
Yep.
flood plain management and all of that, which, depending on what direction the project goes in, those may change, but
Yep.
we can pick those conversations up once you kind of know what direction you're going in.
Yeah, great.
So
All right. Thank you.
anytime. And I will see if I can't get, if I can reach out to MMA, I will do that. And I will certainly try to reach out to the state, to Colin Clark, who is basically the person who owns the shoreland zoning
Okay.
ordinance and see what he says about that. So
Thanks, Michael.
no problem.
Okay, next up is 599 Main Street, Great Salt Bay School parking lot.
I think, oh yeah, this, you got,
I got a few more things.
great. I was just going to explain to the board that, this probably should be a much more straightforward question of whether or not a parking lot needs to go through site plan review. But it was not clear when I went through this. Originally, Mark had asked Andy whether or not it needs site plan review, and I said, I'm not sure. So when I was going through, just trying to put together kind of a summary of whether, what the board should consider when going through this, it is kind of convoluted, but it does seem like parking, reconfiguring parking, rebuilding parking lot anyway, would require site plan review.
I've seen this anyway, Mark.
So hopefully you've read the memo, which I understand is longer than it probably anyway would think, but hope if it makes sense to all of you, then this probably will need site plan review. In which case this can be the kind of conceptual, the pre-application meeting, and hopefully we can get everything kind of put together, and we can do a public notice, and the next meeting can be like the actual public hearing and approval, potential approval.
Well, they're not physically really making that parking lot any bigger. They're just reconfiguring it.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, as near as I can tell, I'm pretty familiar with that property. So, and the flow looks a lot more reasonable for what they're doing up there.
Right. And this is, again, this is maybe something that we might want to address in an ordinance amendment is I don't think that there's going to be any issue. I don't think that the ordinance, what they're proposing, I mean, I haven't gone through it with a fine tooth comb to check all of the standards in the ordinance, but I don't think the ordinance necessarily would have any issue with what you're proposing. I mean, assuming that you're going to, deal with the water runoff and things like that, which I imagine you are going to address. Okay. So it really is just kind of like this is the process, even though it may not result in, anything different. So I just wanted to make it clear that it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily gonna be a high impact project. It's just the ordinance kind of lays out requirements and got to follow the ordinance.
I think that the biggest, like there's been a lot, people redo their parking lots quite often around here and often don't go through any kind of overview.
Right.
But I've noticed that oftentimes the lighting is the issue,
Mhm.
because we do have new guidelines, lighting guidelines, like 16-foot maximum height of the light poles, and I think the ones at the school might be higher than that at this point.
And the plan would be is those would be staying right where they're at.
Oh, so you're not going to really address the lighting at all?
No,
Okay.
because what we'd be doing actually is just expanding. This area right here, this island is already here. We would just extend that over into the bus route. And there's a little island that's where the buses are parking now. That would be paved. This island is already here, would be extending that out, and then would be adding a sidewalk over on this side so that the buses would be pulling in, dropping off students that would come in through here. We'd be gaining some parking that would help us. We'd be able to go from, right now, we currently have 20 to 23 cars at a time that are backed up over into here. I'm sure all of you. have
Yeah.
seen it.
Yeah, it's in there
So
many
what we
times.
did is we designed this so that we could pull these cars in through here. And with the additional parking that's in here, we're gonna pull them all off the street. That's the plan. These would be raised crosswalks here.
Yeah.
We know that we're gonna have to have somebody out there directing traffic to help if there's any students that will go across here or parents. Looking at having some type of a fence landscaping here, so that children don't just dart across.
Yeah.
And just making sure everybody pulls all the way down so that we can get this traffic, which is
So that's the goal, is to get ours off Route 1.
absolutely.
What's
So,
the flow of the buses, Mark, in
yeah,
the new plan?
Yeah, what they would do is they would come in through and then they would pull in and unload right here. But then they have a wide enough path to go through here. This is 31 feet where this would be.
So they're just parking, dropping off the students, and then after they get in and everybody's out of the way, then the buses take off to go through that area.
That's correct.
so there's enough room there for all the buses to line up
Yep.
before they, and then where do they go? At the end of,
Where are they parking?
where are they parking?
They stay right here. Once they pull in and drop their students off, that's where they're staying. So they'd be staying across here. And then we have a couple of sports buses that would be actually down here too, and a spare bus.
So, and the kids come back on the buses there too?
Yep, when they come up through, they'd walk up through, get on their buses.
And then there's a barrier or something that prevents the vehicle traffic from getting into the bus area still.
Yes,
That berm that's there or whatever it is.
yep, and what this will be too, is this area here, we'll make sure that there's definitely some landscaping or fencing that will keep kids from shooting across. That's the goal. Everybody's seen it. It's a challenge that we need to.
You can fix your parking by.
Approximately.
Don't we have rules that, every so many spaces you have to have
We do. We do.
is this gonna be?
this
effective
may-
district or not?
It, I assume it would. The one thing is that because there's already these swales behind the parking spots, the proposed park, it might, we might be able to count that.
We currently have 24, we'll be going to 38.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's 20. I think it's 40. I'll check. I'll have to check. That's, so I didn't do, because I wasn't sure if this was going to need site plan review. I didn't do the whole review on this because I wanted to make sure the planning board said, yeah, we do need, it does need to go through site plan review. So I can do that basically now, assuming that, and I mean, I can do it this probably next week and let you know, like, oh, this needs to be added or moved or whatever.
So there's 20 proposed spaces in a line. One is 18, the other one's 20.
Yeah, so that may not even trigger it. I'll
I
have
don't
to,
think it's gonna.
yeah, it may not. So, but I'll go through and check and just make sure that, go through all the standards and do the regular review, and hopefully if there are any issues, I'll let you know. That way, hopefully we can get this all together.
School season, we only got 2 months to go ahead and get this project done. And we know the construction season filled up, so we want to get this out.
Get it in, yeah.
Just as soon as we can, so we can get
Okay.
potential bidders.
So why does this need site plan review?
Well, let's see. As far as I can tell, accessory parking as a conditional use, well, it would be a condition, it would be parking is going to be an accessory use, and accessory uses to permitted uses are just permitted, and accessory uses to conditional uses are conditional. Which means that it's going to be a conditional use. So basically the accessory parking is going to be a conditional use. Whether it requires is there a difference between construction, reconstruction, and repair? And when you go through the ordinance, repair, maintenance, stuff like that, you're allowed to do. Ordinance doesn't address it. Reconstruction, which I would think if you're taking out a parking lot and putting it back in, you're reconstructing it. You're not really repairing it. So I'm trying to paraphrase this, which okay, conditional use is defined a conditional. So because it's a conditional use, that means it needs to go to the planning board and it needs site plan review. That just like is a requirement for conditional uses. And also, if you're constructing or reconstructing anything, that means that you're going to a building permit's required. And in order to obtain a building permit for conditional use, the planning board must approve the application. And conditional uses are only permitted after review and approval by the planning board. In a planning board for conformance with the site review ordinance. And then the other thing was, is parking lot a structure? Seems, I'll read you the definition of structure. Anything constructed or erected except a boundary wall or fence, the use of which requires location on the ground or attachment to something on the ground. Seems very vague. And that seems silly to me. And then I started kind of thinking about it, and really I think the intention is that if you define structure that way, is to make sure that it's clear that the ordinance has the authority to address anything that like one might build. If it's just a pile of rocks, you put pile of rocks wherever you want. If you were to construct it into a wall, now it's a structure. We specifically exempt structures from walls from being structures, but I would think a dirt lot used for parking, not a structure. It would still be an accessory use. It's just not a structure. But once you start paving and doing that, then it's a structure. So it should be much more clear. And this is another issue where I think maybe we can tweak the ordinance. I'm not sure that it's entirely necessary to be sending every parking lot reconstruction through site plan review, but just from reading the ordinance, it seems like that is
Okay.
the logic kind of leads you there. So, like I said, I don't think that the proposed design, nothing jumps out at me as like this is going to be a problem that can't be approved by the planning board. It's just really it needs to go through the proper process.
Not really
So.
increasing the amount of paved area.
I don't believe so.
Very
Is
much.
it? No.
It's
Literally the
a
same
slight
size.
amount.
Maybe 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, minimal.
Once they do the survey, we'll know exactly how much.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, 5,000 square feet would be the cutoff. I think it does specifically say something in the ordinance about that. But I think that I don't think it should be, my hope is, and you hopefully getting approval potentially at the next meeting isn't too much of a delay to throw the whole project off. I think that is assuming that this can be considered the pre-application meeting, that there shouldn't be any reason why we can't.
So
Get
and
public
we
notice
don't
out.
have to have a hearing on it, right?
I think, well,
We could have it at the
Awfully easy to
beginning of the
do.
meeting,
So-
like we do the other ones and have it
Yeah.
all wrapped up in the same meeting.
right. So yes, the ordinance is going to require that we send notice to the abutters, that the applicant sends notice to the abutters, and that if I think it's like 5 abutters say that they want to have a public hearing, that then we have to have a public hearing. My recommendation to everybody is just have the public hearing. Just assume that you're going to get 5. You don't want to wait until it's too late to get the notice out in time to have a public hearing at the next meeting.
Okay, so let's just have the public hearing right before the meeting.
That's, yeah, no, we can do it. Well, we can do it at the
At the
meeting, and it's, just do it like that. I think, yeah, I think that it'll be faster, and that way we know that we don't need to, assuming that all the standards are met, we should be able to approve it at the next meeting. The board can approve it at the next meeting.
Honestly, pretty substantial improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally, I think it's a good project. I don't see any,
See anything.
I know that what DOT is doing some work up there and is going to be changing the road a bit. So accommodating the parking or the carpool line on site is going to be necessary.
Yeah, because we looked at, what if we added a lane out with DOT, but it just didn't make sense with everything that they got going.
Yeah.
So we actually looked at this, and the first phase of this, what we came up with, was taking this traffic all the way around the building and come through here. But the more we looked at it, safety wise, you have children that are going here out into the playground. You have teachers coming in, going here. It just didn't make sense to do it that way. So it made sense just to go ahead and keep it here, pull off what we could here. And it really, we're fortunate that it really does fit pretty well. For what we're gonna have.
Yeah, I saw that leather plan that kind of looped it around, and I was going to ask, but I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense generally. I'll make sure that I
Yeah.
double check the lighting, but does anybody have any other things that you want me to make sure I pay
They're not
attention to?
altering the lighting. I don't have any.
They're
problem.
not
Right.
gonna alter.
Yeah.
their-
Well,
I
I'll
don't have an issue.
But does it conform with what is required?
that's what I'm going to look. That's what I'm going to check.
So even if they're not changing it, if it doesn't conform with it, they're doing a project, they're gonna have to conform with it.
Well,
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I mean, it could be an existing nonconformity.
Said if it's too high now, then it's gonna have to meet the,
Do you know what your pole heights are?
Yeah.
We'll find out for the next meeting, all right?
Yeah, I will take a look at this and let you know what other information I might need. And I'll try and do that, as quickly as I can so that we can get everything together. I'm gonna assume that we're going to, that we'll have everything we need for the next meeting, and I'll coordinate with you on notice and everything so that, if for some reason we don't have everything together and we notice that it's gonna be a public meeting, oh well, we'll just,
If you can find any information about your existing fixtures.
Yeah.
Also, that are on the poles.
Yep.
That they're supposed to be cut off fixtures. So if you can find some information about those to bring in, that would be good.
Cut off, you mean so that we could dim them?
No, so it doesn't spread off the property.
Oh, yeah.
I said the light
The
is
light is
like,
direct.
with
Facing
is,
down.
yeah, shot down. But I'll,
Also put in, I think in 2014.
Should be easy enough to find it. They keep pretty good records. You probably got the records right in your office.
I do.
Bring them in.
I would think though that if they're already there, even if they don't conform, they're not changing them, they're just an existing nonconformity.
Kind of agree with Neil.
but yeah, so.
But we can check, but that's,
Let's just
I mean,
see
just
what it-
bring in the information. Let's
Yeah.
just take a
Let's
look.
see what-
Sure.
Whole height and what the fixtures are.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we get everything to you so that we can put this out to bid in February. That's where we're at.
Yeah. sure. I think that, I don't see any reason right now that that it should extend beyond the February meeting. So like I said, as long as I tell you what I need and you get me what you
Okay.
need, then we should be good.
Sounds
So I hope.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later, Mark.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing, 100 Main Street, Bangor Savings Parking Lot.
Did we get copies of the?
Yes.
We sent them electronically.
Yeah, that's my,
It was hard to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
um,
I think, in that plan, so sheet 102.
Thank you.
Layout plan, should probably be a good one to follow along with.
I've seen most of this.
Thank you.
Electronically.
Yeah.
We got one more copy that I'm gonna give her.
or yeah. If you don't need it, can you leave it with Linda at the end?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
So
Cool.
that you can follow along with you guys while.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, you know what? Do you have, can I have the findings of facts and I put together this, I think I emailed to you all.
Yeah, I caught
This was yours. So I still need to go through and do the site plan review for this. Because I wasn't sure whether or not it was gonna have to go through site plan review. But I did, I believe, go through most of the land use ordinance, and I have some questions for you about that are gonna be applicable for site plan. And shoreland, I believe I went through. And I still need to go through the sign ordinance. But historic preservation, I believe, is not going to be applicable, so should be all good there.
And signs, we're just doing a little parking lot signs, so.
That's, I just gotta look through and see if it's what is applicable or not. I imagine it shouldn't be too much of an issue, but I don't know.
It's all wayfinding and traffic safety.
Yeah, so. Just want to make sure that it fits. So the board can let you do it, and if the public doesn't like it, the board can still let you do it.
What?
Just because the board likes something doesn't mean the board can just approve something. You know, the ordinance says this is what you can approve, this is what you can't approve. You know, so if someone were to appeal it, I don't want the board to make decisions that would just get overturned on appeal.
I don't think they'll appeal our handicap parking.
No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine, but it's so, all right, sorry, you can.
Okay, so
I'll do a brief introduction and then I can take some questions, but history on this site, Bangor Savings 3-4 years ago bought the Damariscotta Bank and Trust building. In behind was a smaller office building, and then when they looked at it and got it and analyzed, it really was in pretty rough shape, and they could reuse the building to bring it up to the current codes. So they've been trying to figure out what's the best thing to do with that property, and they had several meetings with the town, and what they decided is if they improve that for parking for the bank and bring it up to standards with landscaping around, better stormwater and all of that, then there could be some additional land, and we've been talking with Andy, the town manager. So if this goes through and they do that project, then we're going to be working with the town probably this spring to donate that extra land for the town. And they were pretty excited about it. We still have to go through the council process and the vote, but that gives additional public parking or whatever the town wants to do. And the other component, there's a group that is looking to get access to the bay for mobility, like handicap ramps, so that with small boats and that sort of thing. So we went to our design team and said, okay, how can we work with the town so whatever we do here fits in? So if they generate the need and it gets, and they want to do it, then they've got a pathway and they can have some handicap parking and get down to the bay. So we worked with them on that. So that's what we're looking to do there. We were supposed to be here last summer, and when we met again with the town, they said, we have this thing called Pumpkin Fest, because we were going to do the work in the fall. And we did a little bit of research, say, yeah, we're not bringing our trucks in there during Pumpkin Fest. So that's why we're here in the winter time. So, and our goal is to get this done this spring. The good news is we bring it up to standards. We have buffering. We have 20% less impervious. So stormwater improves. The other item that the town brought up is through FEMA, there's been some concerns with some flood elevations in that back, and given the recent storms. So we again talked to the engineer, how can we work with the town? So we actually picked up the back end of our site over 2 feet. So that's going to help the town with flood management as well. You asked about parking lot lighting. Right now, I drove through on the way over. We got a big old spotlight, which is not dark sky, doesn't meet any standards. That'll get removed with this, and we'll put the shorter cutoff fixtures on the parking for there. So that's what we're doing. We're excited about it and here to ask any questions that you would have. And I have Jeff Reed from CV Mahar, the engineer who did all the work, available for questions as well.
I'd like to have a site visit.
Do a site visit? Okay, you have to schedule that. I think that should be no problem.
So on page, on this page or whatever, I'm unclear as to what land you're planning on donating to the town, if the project went through, what?
So Currently, Bangor Savings owns all of that parcel through there, so it'd be all the existing parking that's there.
Wait, show me, it's,
So this is where the bank is, this is where the old building was. So that would be improved, and then all this parking up on that other knoll. That would be all done.
wait, this full parcel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would be, so, and there's that little tiny thing. What about, explain to me your plans along the shorefront.
So we're
Right
gonna
there.
be putting a little pocket park there with landscaping. So that'll be available for bank customers and anyone else who wants to go back there. And for the ramp, it's either gonna be here or pathway to get to the shoreline.
Are you planning on riprapping that part of the shoreland?
Just, I'm not sure.
We are actually along that section that we're extending out.
Because it is, I mean, I have concerns because it's a important habitat for, horseshoe crabs and all kinds of other stuff right there. I mean, I can't imagine.
I believe it's
Deep.
riprap now.
No, it's just big piles
Gravel.
of pieces of concrete. It's natural shoreland, but it's, it's kind of a dump.
A little bit.
But it's, it's a. It's, I guess. I mean. I guess you can, because it's less than 100 linear feet, you can get a permit by rule, right? Is it
We're not
so?
going into the shoreline at all. We're pulling that back. The riprap will be within the existing disturbance.
But we're not extending out beyond the existing coast slope. All we're doing is stabilizing that
Yeah,
existing.
I mean, that's still hardening that piece of shoreline that right now is slumping and eroding.
Right.
In a very natural way.
Somewhat natural, yeah. The
Um,
pavement, I don't know, is
The
It's natural,
proposed
but-
lot, is it within the fence that's existing now? Is that? You have a fence down around there now
Yeah,
where the
it's
building
right
was. Is
around.
that pretty much where the parking lot will be?
Yeah, or inward of that.
Yep.
Yeah, towards Main
So
Street.
you're gonna put a huge amount of soil. I mean, is this all gonna be built up right in here? Because the flood zone, which is,
Yep.
it's right here, kind of,
Shown on sheet C
on to the
102.
right of
Yep.
the shaded project.
So, we're gonna match it to existing pavement elevations on the western and we're gonna basically reduce that slope coming across. We have the vegetation coming up on either side of this so that we can then, make that a little bit flatter and still provide drainage down either side.
I mean, I really want to see a visual of this. I mean, I'm really concerned about this huge elevated pad in the middle of the back parking area. I mean, I think we might end up with something that we go, whoa, is this what we approve?
do you have a grading plan or anything like
We
that?
do have a grading plan, actually.
Or just how about like a rendering of like what it would look like?
Yep, we can get you that.
So. So we're talking about basically bringing that northwest, sorry, the northeast corner. On the dumpster pad, that's gonna come up 1.5 to 2 feet above existing.
What sheet you looking at? Still 102?
I'm looking at sheet 104 is the grading plan.
So it's gonna be, so. Right now, you can. I mean, I know there's this big war down there, of fences and property lines, but you can travel. Parallel to the river kind of. Is that all gonna be blocked by, this elevation of the land?
No, which I think it's gonna be a lot more subtle than you think.
Because, I mean, right now, your current site, there's quite a grade difference. Under where the foundation was of.
We're gonna fill it up and level it out more. So instead of tailing off down on that downslope side, we're gonna elevate that end, so it's gonna.
That's like 3 feet at least. I mean, that's,
And I think that's your site, that's where your site visit come in, because I think his 2 feet, I think. You're thinking that's bigger than what it really is gonna end up being. I think that's why when we go down and do the site visit with a rule, we can
Yeah.
show that
Yeah.
and show from existing, because
Yeah.
2 feet, I think it'll be pretty much unnoticeable, to be honest with you.
when
Okay,
it's done.
but that's why I think a site
Yep,
visit would
we'll
be
do a
really
site
helpful
visit,
to
yeah.
understand
Yep, yep.
how it's gonna go.
Yeah, because right now it plateaus, then it tapers
Right.
down, so we want to balance that out for the drainage.
And as well, and I'm not, trying to, deflect any of this, but we did do this on request from, the town was interested in raising that section, bring it up out of the floodplain.
Hmm.
That little section along our site, there's a lot more off of our site that are in that flood zone. But it was the town who had suggested that and was looking.
And it only makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, everything
Well-
else we're doing in there is trying to protect for the
Right.
future floods and.
Exactly, with raising rising sea levels and shoreline resiliency. It was something that they'd asked us to look into and what do we do to help.
So, I mean, what is it gonna look like right along the shoreline? Are you talking about like a concrete barrier
I don't know.
or what?
So it's gonna be, so we're gonna have a little section where we kind of level out to provide that pocket park. There'll be some landscaping there, picnic table and some other things, and kind of built out mostly lawn type area. The edge of the embankment is gonna come down off that edge at a 3-to-1 slope. Okay, which is fairly gentle. I mean, it's when we, in the engineering community, it's something that you can mow, it's something that you can maintain. It's something that doesn't need a lot of additional stabilization. And then just along the toe, just to protect that edge, there's gonna be some stone and some riprap, basically down to the water line, but we're not doing anything below the tide line.
Well, there is salt marsh grass there.
Mhm.
So that's gonna be protected and stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna stay out of that, and to the part of the work that we're doing, we have an erosion sediment control plan in here as well. So during construction, when the site is disturbed, there'll be silt fence, there'll be other measures there to protect sediment from running down into and down below the water line to protect the existing environment down below that. Everything, basically is gonna be constructed to the existing toe, so it'll be in the dry, as it were. And then, again, that riprap provides just next to the level of stabilization along that edge so that bank will not erode. Say it will not erode, there are no guarantees, right? But it's just an extra level of protection to keep sediment and soil from moving into the river.
They're actually moving
So
existing parking out of this area.
Yeah, we're actually losing.
That whole back section right now, they park and you can get your car all the way to the shoreline. That's what we're going back 20,
Yeah.
30 feet to create that pocket park. And that was
Pretty good.
another discussion we had with the town, say, what do you want with that area? And they thought having that, it's a nice area to go sit and enjoy the area.
So within 75 feet of the water, I mean, are you allowed to do this much?
Depends what we're talking about, but yes, that's I was actually just gonna ask is like, what within 25 feet is really the
Yeah.
stay out. It doesn't look like you're parking. Looks like it might just come to 25 feet.
It's right on the edge, it's right up to, but what we are doing is we are pulling back the existing pavement. The existing pavement right now is closer than that, and we're pulling it back
Mhm.
to 25 feet. We're actually reducing the impervious area in this section by a little over 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an improvement.
Which is good. I mean, I've got some questions for, I think it's shoreland. I've also got some stuff for the, one of my questions is gonna be what's the final elevation of the parking lot, which I think is probably on here now,
Yeah,
right?
it's shown on the grading plan.
Yeah, I don't think, did you submit that before? Is that new? You must have submitted it before, right? This is just a hard copy of what you already submitted,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Correct. This is
So I missed-
the electronic copy that.
I missed that.
Sent in for the holiday.
So I will,
We had reviewed with you in the past.
okay.
What'd
Yeah.
be the difference between your finished new project and standing in your parking lot, looking at the water, the parking lot to the right? There's obviously a huge difference. in the elevation now between the, not your lot, the next
Oh,
lot over?
the one next. So,
That's gonna be down in the valley.
beg your pardon?
Is it gonna look like it's in the valley?
No, so what we have, and you can see, actually, if you look at that same sheet, C-104, okay?
Mhm.
We're blending into existing grade on the property, and then we're gonna use that vegetated section between the two, so there'll be a shallow swale. And then coming up to the parking lot, there's maybe a foot to a foot and a half difference along that edge. It tapers from, so up by where courtyard, where the sewer easement comes across, it's the same. But as you get closer to the water, we hold the elevation, we kind of pull it up a little bit, so it's gonna do one of these type of things. But yeah, we're looking at probably a difference of
Foot and a half.
foot and a half, maybe, along that edge.
And that's why we have the 10-foot swale there to make that grass. Now it's right on the pavement.
Right.
So you don't have room to.
Just to
To
ease
do
that
anything.
transition and to make sure that we're not running stormwater on our neighbor.
Correct. Well, that was,
As
one of my
well as on the
questions.
other
Yeah.
side, we want to collect everything from the western side and direct that towards the river as well, just to manage that a little bit better. And the byproduct, the advantage is that we add green space.
So, and you don't have, you're taking out that shed that you have back there.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that going anywhere else or?
No,
And you have dumpsters placed back here?
Just one small
there?
dumpster. I think it's two small. One's for recycle, one's for, and it's just to service the bank. So it'll be in an enclosure.
that'll be an enclosure, and the landscaping plan at the end of the plan set shows plantings around there well to provide some screening.
It's a shame the park doesn't go up to the landscaped island. You know what I mean? You have that extra space just to run a car around, the back, but
Well, that's more for access to get.
Yeah, I think she's talking about the circulation route in
yeah,
here.
the
and
circular,
basically
at toward the river, that end.
Yeah.
That just seems sort of like extra pavement.
Well,
Road
it was
shortening up, though.
kind of what we needed to do to get the numbers we had with the site circulation, with the.
How many
Make it work.
employees are at the bank?
I'm not sure. I can find out. But when we ask them for parking, part of the issue is they don't really like to do a lot of signage, and it's pretty open back there. So there is a decent amount of, during peak season, other people using the parking lot. So that's what they felt that they needed, and without having to put a whole lot of signs up to keep the bank going.
Right, more fences.
26.
The 25 and 2 handicap.
20, there were 23 and 2 handicaps, so 25 total.
25.
Yep.
What do you got?
And the
One blanked out?
requirement
You got one
based
blanked
on-
out. Okay, I see what you got. One of them cross-hatched.
Yep.
For access. I get it.
The requirement based on the square footage of the building is 19.
Mhm. Okay.
So we're in line with that.
Does the bank have plans on selling the property? Or are they staying there for?
Oh, no, this is long term.
Okay.
No, they're very pleased, and it's been very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons, that's why they're really trying to work with the town and say, we'll get this extra land. How can it work for the other merchants downtown and the different people? So.
And we have done, kind of working through initially with the preliminary conversations with the town manager. We did do a kind of a quick concept plan on how that additional space can be used.
The green space.
Yeah, we designed it in such a way that if they want to use it for public parking, it flows conveniently.
And we looked into shoreline access and carry boat ramps, that sort of thing, and that can all be accomplished on that parcel that would be transferred.
Right. Yeah, I know that there's been interest in having that accessible boat launch,
Yeah.
non-motorized.
Yeah, I mean,
hand carry.
it's slightly perilous,
Depending on the tide, yeah.
depending on the tide. I
Is
mean,
it?
people get into a lot of trouble going up or down the river at the wrong tide.
We did, yeah. Andy mentioned trying to work out some kind of like indication system of like if you leave now and you're going upstream to Great Salt Bay, you're not coming back for, 6 hours until the tide turns or
No,
whatever
no,
it is.
that's just
but-
like, people have to learn that through experience.
Right, yeah.
You're not gonna have a sign at your green light, red light,
Yeah, you could end up stuck down.
Then you're
Downstream
gonna need
easily.
that extra spot down there because the fire truck has to get down and park down there while they go over and get them.
Right.
Oh, the,
Dumpster, you're gonna need all that to park.
you're gonna need like emergency parking to rescue everybody, yeah.
Okay.
Tell Andy that, let Andy know.
Oh, yeah, no, that's,
Um,
We were just the recipient of the request.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
So you guys did a lot of like deed work,
Yes.
figuring out the lines and the historic rights of way maybe
Yes.
and stuff?
Yep.
Can we have all that information, that data, all those data points?
Get in there.
Some of it's
I
in
mean,
there. and-
it would be
yeah,
nice
me
to
and I
have-
had talked with them about it.
It'd be nice to have,
Yeah.
We done all that?
no. We have a real problem in the back parking lot. We really need to, the town needs to have all these.
When you say the back parking, you referring to this,
This
to this?
the whole area. the
But this
whole
side,
area,
not the,
right now
not the
there's-
big parking lot.
This whole area.
Yeah.
Is a problem.
And that's what I think the conversation that we had was, assuming that the town ends up with that piece that you'd mentioned, that the town would have rights to access there's two.
There's two, yeah.
I want to say one is Griffin Lane and one is
Curtis.
what's on here.
Yeah.
Um,
But Jenny, as you said, the title is a bear. And we've had a title attorney working hard on it. So we think we have it defined, and the town manager is going to put us in touch with the town attorney. And so if and when that other piece gets, be a perfect time to really clean.
Well, what I mean is we'd really appreciate you sharing your
Yeah, oh,
information.
absolutely.
found
No,
out, Because
it's-
it's something that's kind of baffled the town.
That's a lot of,
Yeah.
that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, to put it in perspective, so if you go through the main entrance of Bangor Savings, they don't have any rights to the right, but they have all the rights to the left. And I know the neighbor in the past has put post up and that sort of thing. It's what his right is, but that's,
right.
so
Well,
it is.
That needs to be
And a lot of
explored.
these deeds go back to the 1800s. It is
Mhm.
a lot of common language. And I read it, I kept reading it, and then I said, yeah, I'm past my, no, can't do it. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
we'll share all of that with the town
Yeah,
and work
that'd be
closely with
great.
the town and the neighbors. And if they have questions, say, hey, these are the rights that you have or we have, that sort of thing.
Right.
But, yeah.
I guess, yeah, and it would just be really great if you have an artist on your staff that could make a sketch of what this is gonna look like.
Let's do some topos. We'll be able to do something with three. So when we're on the site walk, we get a better feel for it. But there is less grade, and because I've driven it a bunch of times, what's deceiving is you get that mound where the old building was.
Mhm.
And I think we're gonna be just balancing it easier.
The high point's coming out and gonna get pushed to the lower side so that we can maintain a constant slope. going
Yeah.
So you're gonna, okay, kind of shave it down a
So
little.
Yeah.
there'll be some cut and some fill in there. So whenever we do a site like this, we try to balance it as best we can. And it minimizes the import and the export of fills and materials as well. But that high point and that crown is going to come out.
Yep.
And basically that edge along the left, well, as you're looking page left on that side is going to be the new high point, and it's going to slope very gently coming across about 1.5%, so that we can still get the water to run and flow and keep puddles and icing and everything else at bay. But I think it'll should look nice when it's done.
Are you doing any grading that's on the piece of the property that might go to the town?
No, we're
So
just
that's gonna
connecting.
stay where it is?
Yeah. But we've accumulated, so that it can sheet drain into that swale.
Okay.
Right.
So that, because I think.
That's
the way that I
relatively
remember it-
flat.
Yeah, it's
And then
pretty flat,
after
and then
that
it
is
drops
when
off
it's,
where the, kind of where the building was.
Yeah.
And goes down, and you're gonna,
So basically, we're gonna saw cut that edge.
Mhm.
And that's gonna be a hard point. That's gonna be our starting point.
Mhm.
And then off of there, we're gonna come down with a shallow swale, kind of that 10-foot strip of vegetation.
Nice and gentle.
And then.
and then it'll
keep sheeting
slope down.
Yep.
It'll slope down towards the water generally, or
Oh, it's
above?
gonna turn towards that other neighbor on the side.
Yeah,
And
so
then
it's
pick
gonna-
that up, so.
Right.
So Elaine doesn't own all those spaces? No, Elaine,
Oh, where the road kind of is, but it looks like a road there.
For this building here,
Yeah.
own the top building.
no, this is Lizette's.
Okay,
Okay, this right here,
that's all Bangor Savings.
that's Bangor Savings.
There's a few little parking spaces here that they deeded over, but that's it, but all of those
But
are.
doesn't she have these all marked for her?
I'm not sure.
That's.
Ah, that's interesting.
I would not, trust but verify, but I would imagine that a bank is probably going to do their due diligence when they're doing title work. So,
I bet they know how to do it.
right.
Yeah.
So,
You had some other questions on there about Courtyard Street, et cetera. How's that relevant to?
that's, yeah. So one of my, could you, and we don't need to do this right now. I have a question about what the total proposed footprint of all the structures, including like the final footprint of the pavement and
Yeah.
whatever else. So
Yeah.
if you could,
Yeah, we'll provide that.
I'll shoot you all of these,
Yeah.
but because I know I said I would get this to you, and I just didn't get to it today.
That's fine.
So, well, I did have a question about the riprap, and so are you using any retaining walls, or is it
No,
basically
no.
it's riprap?
Yeah, we want it as natural as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's good.
So the project area is a little over 35,000 square feet, so 35,019.
And that's what's paved,
That is the paving, the landscaping, that's everything in the project area.
and I imagine that includes what is paved, I believe now that's going to not be paved. It'll be green space.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
there's
that's-
over almost a 5,100 square foot reduction in impervious, 20% reduction.
So would and again, it doesn't need to be right now, but would you be able to tell me what the footprint of the paved area and any,
Sure.
Dumpster
Oh, yeah.
pads or whatever it is? If you can get me that, I would just need that for my review.
Yep. So
Yeah, we'll get it to them.
okay.
Because if you put it in an email, it'd be much
Yeah,
better, because then I can forget
exactly.
about it right now.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I just want to make sure it might be useful to get the actual location of the riprap and where that kind of structure is going to be.
Sure.
Are you going to be able to kind of define where the 100-year floodplain, like the boundary, is going to be after you redo this? I imagine I can guess on here, but is that something that you can define?
Yeah, because it's based on an elevation.
Yeah,
So
that's
we
what
can
I.
assign it to a contour, and we can let you know what that is, and then
Okay.
follow the contour.
Yeah, because my thinking, just when I was going through some of the shoreland zoning ordinance, that there's some things, it talks about the floodplain area, and we've got our floodplain management ordinance here, that it would make sense to try and apply that after we know what the final grade is, what the proposed grade is, not before. I noticed you've got a picnic table that kind of crosses into the 25-foot area of the shoreland zone. If you could
Not gonna
move,
be bolted down.
I know, and I just went through a thing with Colin Clark, who basically was like, there's no such, not that there's no such thing as temporary, but there's no distinction between temporary and permanent structures. So if you could just move it out of the 25,
Sure.
I imagine that's easy enough, then non-issue.
Sure.
There is I think this is shoreline. It says parking area shall be designed to prevent stormwater runoff from flowing directly into a water body, tributary, stream, or wetland, and where feasible to retain all runoff on site. I imagine, now you don't have any pavement that's going to go right up to the,
All goes through the swale.
it all goes through the swale.
Right.
And is the crowning of this, is the water going to generally run off to the side, or does it run towards the?
It's gonna run from,
Both
as you're looking
sides.
at the page,
Okay.
well, it's not crowned, so it's gonna sheet from left to right.
Okay,
Down that swale.
Yeah, so
but it really shouldn't be running towards the river.
no,
Okay.
it's as you're standing at the bank and you're looking back towards the water,
Mhm.
it's gonna go like this more than it's gonna go
Right. Okay.
down. And we do that for the same reason. So as far as DEP is concerned, you know, and that's why the swales are vegetated
Mhm.
and not lined with stone, because the vegetation helps filter,
Right.
helps provide a level of treatment. It helps cool the stormwater coming off of the parking lot, and it helps slow the flows.
Right.
So what we're doing on the left is we're trying to take care of all the water coming off of the existing pavement. And then all of the pavement on the new parking area is going to be sheeting 90% to the vegetated swale on the other side.
Okay.
Which is not what it does today.
Right.
No, I
Right, right.
yes, no, I appreciate what it does today is not not ideal.
And the intent there, even though for chapter 500 standards for state standards for stormwater and stormwater treatment, the site isn't big enough, the project isn't big enough to require
Yeah,
treatment.
right.
But we did want to provide a level of, yeah, we want to do the right thing.
Mhm.
So, so we did want to add those berms.
Okay. And is it water that does run from like the bank building from Main Street towards the water, the pavement ends before it's going to drop off into the water.
Oh, yeah.
And is there grass there? Like pavement
all
ends and there's gonna be
grass.
grass
Yeah,
and
it's a big strip.
vegetated. Okay. I imagine that should satisfy that,
Sure.
the language that I come across in there.
And there's, cars can still go behind the bank building.
Yes.
Yeah, we
toward
we
the-
haven't changed any of
Haven't-
the
yeah,
alleyways or
okay.
anything, so that will.
Still
Yes.
passage.
Right.
Yep.
What
Are
we
you-
are gonna have is we're gonna have a painted crosswalk across the existing
Okay,
road, just to help kind of define a pedestrian travel route to get from the parking area across that easement to the bank building.
Are you repaving? It looks like you're repaving that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
you're not
it'll
changing
resurface.
yeah.
But the bank owns it. It has, the sewer line has it, the sewer district has an easement through it, and then I think one neighbor has access rights through it.
Right.
But the public uses it, and that's, I mean, because it's more like a
so
public.
this will be a little grassy island on this, toward the bank, you know? that
Yes,
little-
yep,
Will it have trees?
yes.
Well, it'll
Yeah.
be shorter
Shorter
plantings.
shrubs.
Towards the end of that plan set, we have a landscape plan.
With,
Okay,
It actually shows
with
what,
some
what's
trees
coming in.
towards the shoreline.
so in that pocket park, we're planting three small trees, and then the landscaped islands are gonna have shorter plantings. And then,
Now, are those curbed?
I believe they
Yep.
are.
Yes, yep.
So I think, and I'll check, like I said, I haven't done the site plan review yet. Is there a possibility that they could be like sunken so that water can filter in there, or even maybe just like cut out the curb so that water can filter in there?
Well,
Water doesn't flow that way.
Right. Well,
And what we
It's-
found in the past when we've done that, it's really hard to maintain your landscaping. Cause it washes out, it freezes up,
uh-huh.
and you get, so,
Okay.
I mean, it's nice they're pretty prideful on their landscaping, so they want it to look good.
You having Cape Cod or are you going straight?
Or either doing concrete or granite, the hard surface, any wearing surface, it's granite.
it'll be a slow curb.
The plow guys love the Cape Cod, cause they get to regrade your site every winter.
where are you putting your snow? Do you have a snow area?
The snow is gonna be off on the sides as well, so those vegetative swales in the winter are gonna be some snow storage.
Okay,
See.
so right now there's no lighting really in the back, in that back parking.
It's just a big spotlight off the building, so,
Yeah, so that will be gone, that spotlight?
yes. Yep.
I mean, I guess there's concern, there's a lot of people live
Mhm.
down there, and just to have really subdued lighting,
Yes.
minimal lighting.
The standards that they typically want is safety for someone who's working at night, just enough to get them safely to their car. So it's not the Walmart parking lot where you have the shoppers that you really need the carts. It's a low key, low fixtures, just to get enough foot candles to make it safe.
Those going down the center?
No,
We had
I missed that.
there are four in all, and there is a site utility plan that shows the location. It's gonna be all the way down, basically north, south, east, and west on the parking area. Not find it now. It's on, excuse me, should be sheet 105.
So that's gonna be significantly more light. Basically, it's gonna be a lit up parking lot.
Well, it's going to be different lighting. The light poles are going, so it's on sheet 103. So the light poles are going to be shorter. They're going to be more ornamental type fixtures. That'll fit in a little bit better with the character down there. We've used them at other sites and can provide cut sheets. But as far as lumens go, we're going to adhere to, like David said, certainly a minimum standard, but
And I'll also ask Bangor Savings, what's their policy is for, when do they turn them off?
When did they turn them on?
Yeah. So I'll ask the question. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They're really, I mean, I just had a presentation from them. People say they put security in the bank and the security person says their role for security at Bangor Savings is there to protect the customer and the employee, not the money. So that's what their primary concern about is an employee or a customer at night. But the drive-through is on the closer to the road, so they don't need to light that other than there. So
Well,
I'll
customers aren't gonna be using this at night.
no, that's what I mean. That's why I want to ask Bangor Savings, are they gonna need, when will they be shutting off the parking lot lights? Is it 6, 7, 8 o'clock at this time of year? So I'll ask that question
Yeah, I'm
during
sure.
site plan review. I'll have an answer.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I probably need a lighting plan.
Yeah, you have
You
one,
can-
and.
Oh, I see,
that's-
I mean,
that's-
what, 103, is that what you're talking about?
I'm not sure,
it
but
is the
we'll
utility
give,
plan, yeah.
we'll get you a
Utility, yeah.
lighting plan with photometrics.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's,
photometrics.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But more
uh,
importantly, for Jenny's question, what's the timing?
Yeah, I think that'll,
Because they have a building management system, they'll be able to turn them on or off and.
right, which is
we'll put
good.
them
I,
on- we'll
and
put
you
'em on
mentioned the
motion.
cut sheets for those,
Yep.
like we were talking about before, the full cutoff, stuff like that. So I just want to make sure
Right.
that's on there. I'm sure there's gonna be some, I'll have to follow up with you about some stuff when I'm actually going through.
Sure.
One question I had for the board was Courtyard Street. Is it a street or a road? It's private, it's ordinance isn't really clear on this. It seems like it could be an alleyway. I don't think we defined any of this.
Along the lanes properly, right?
Yeah, I guess the question is, there's some standards about frontages and setbacks from streets and things like that. It's not a public way. It's, there's some private, those neighbors have easements to cross it, but it's not like a public road. And I'm just wondering,
It's plowed by the town,
is it?
I think.
I doubt it if it's not public, if it's not a public road.
The town has made arrangements with a lot of property owners to plow their rights of ways and parking lots, like behind the Stars building.
Mhm.
He actually owns way out into the parking lot there.
Yeah.
And they plow that.
Mhm.
So
So there's some issues that are like unclear in the land use and site plan review about, it says setbacks for parking shall be the same as that for structures as required by the Damariscotta land use ordinance. In the downtown, basically setbacks can be in the C1 area. Setbacks are measured from, I don't know if it's road,
property line.
from like the front setback is from a road. But this isn't, well, it doesn't seem to be a road, but I just want to make sure that we're not expecting buildings to have front setbacks from Courtyard Street. Since it's not, I don't think it's really a street, but that's all something you all would decide is Courtyard a street, and would buildings or structures need to be set back?
Which one is Courtyard?
It's
It's the
basically between the properties. It's like right behind the building. It's the easement that's there.
That's all owned by Bangor Savings.
Yeah.
It is not Courtyard Street.
Right,
So-
and it's a weird gray area. I just want to confirm that the town is not, that the board is not going to look at Courtyard Street as a street for the purposes of like setbacks and things like
But
that.
we don't have any
private property.
Yeah.
If they own it,
Yes, I
then
just
it's,
wanna,
They own
Yeah.
it. It's private property. It's not town property, so no. I
No,
don't
their,
think
their
it's-
frontage is Main Street. That's that's the only real street that's there.
But-
that's the only front end use.
Are you saying that Courtyard Street is the street behind the bank?
It is, that's what it's called. Courtyard Street is what it is. on-
Courtyard Street is just the name
Oh, I
of
see.
the
Yes,
street between Best Buy and
right.
the yarn shop.
That's, so this is, okay. When you look at like Google Earth, it says like Courtyard Street goes back from Main
Google Earth's
Street.
not the title.
No, that's, I agree. And then it continues to like into Elm Street. And I just want to make sure that no one,
so
we're
I
not
was-
trying to make an argument that that
I
is a
assumed
street.
Courtyard Street was the one that goes between Best Tie and the yarn shop that goes out behind to that lot.
Yeah.
Right.
If you look at the
And all-
last page in the plan set. Okay, it includes, that's the boundary survey that we had done for the project. And you can see that labeled as Courtyard Street. Comes off of Main Street out towards this back parking lot. And it comes to the property line of Bangor Savings Bank. Now that whole kind of L-shaped section of road that's there right now is actually an easement that is offered to the Great Salt Bay
Just that
Sewer
one.
District.
Well, you say court, it's just the, does that, does it go
So,
across?
so the sewer easement runs from Main Street up the back and then across Bangor Savings Bank property, but that's, I mean, that's not for the road, that's for
Right.
access to the
Yeah.
sewer.
That's, I just want to make sure that
Right.
we're clear on where we're measuring setbacks
Right.
and where we're requiring frontage setbacks from. So
Right.
that's all. I'm happy that sounds like we're in agreement since no one's arguing, but new lighting we discussed. Okay, I put a question in here. This is parking. Does the proposed parking area provide safe, convenient, and efficient access for vehicles and pedestrians? Assuming that no one has an issue with that, I mean, that's going to be a judgment call, but that we'll have to find that is the case. Okay, all street discussion from the word. In the C1 downtown commercial district, parking lots may be set back 15 feet from non-frontage streets or in accordance with the land use ordinance, whichever is less. No standards for required setbacks for parking in the C1 are provided in the land use. There's just some like gray area there that's not addressed. I'm imagining that we're not going to be, that you all aren't going to be sticklers about, if you look at the land use table, this is kind of what I was talking about before. You don't need to worry about it. Discussion point. Yeah, so it's state on the designs will show parking. Okay, I think that's fine. Okay, I asked you about the vegetated islands, swales, tree box filters. I have to look at the ordinance again to see whether it's how required they are. I think what you said about, the freezing and the maintenance and all of that makes sense, but again, what's in the ordinance is there aren't really internal walkways. It says internal walkways should be distinguished from driving surfaces through the use of marked crosswalks and or durable surface materials such as pavers, bricks, scored concrete to enhance pedestrian safety and comfort. You've got crosswalks in there, but
We
I
have
don't,
crosswalks and it's a single parking lot.
yeah,
It's not,
that's,
I mean, if you required that, Hannaford would be a sea of sidewalks.
Well, Hannaford,
It's a sea of sidewalks.
that's not the best comparison.
Yeah.
Well, and they kind of do from the mouth of the parking lot to the building, same as what you're doing,
Yeah.
so it's,
Yeah.
to me, it meets that.
Okay.
Safe pedestrian
It's
access.
a standard
Correct.
layout.
And erosion and sediment control. Oh yeah, erosion and sediment control, which I
Yeah,
think
we have
we've
erosion
discussed. And
control.
I know you already mentioned
Yep.
a lot
Plans,
of that,
notes,
so.
details.
Yes, I already asked you about all of that. Let's say, okay, that's fine. I think that is. I have to look through the sign ordinance, but I think that's basically everything I've got
Okay.
for.
Right.
I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure I'll have questions, but I don't.
should we set a time for?
Oh, yeah, if
Site-
you'd like to do
site
that, we
visit.
certainly can. When When would the board like to,
Don't you have to advertise that?
we will have to advertise, yeah, so it's gonna have to be in probably like 2
February.
weeks, yeah.
Pick a time. As far as the other one on Biskie Road, you can pick a time for that too. I'm pretty flexible now. I
Okay.
mean, the other guys I can't speak for,
Okay,
but
I'm on
myself,
the same schedule as Jonathan.
yeah.
I'm flexible.
you know, it does occur to me,
He's the worker.
okay,
Thank goodness.
Right? You did your share, pal.
I will say that if we do a site visit for technically the only people that should participate in any review would be people that are there. Because it would be basically like missing a meeting. So if you're not there, I guess you could like check the minutes or something and get brought up to speed, but
Or you can drive on your own. No, I've
Yeah,
seen
I
other
guess
board
that's-
members. I mean, it's.
that's
pretty-
true
it's
too,
pretty-
yeah.
Well, yeah, I see it no different as you missing a meeting, as long as you can confirm that you have been caught up
Yeah.
and then you can continue on. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, but I mean,
that's.
you make the meeting and I'll do my best to get there.
Well, I just want to make sure that as many people are there as possible.
This time of year is dark when it is, so,
Yeah.
but I'll figure something out.
Okay, so then why don't maybe we can do it after the meeting. Why don't I'll coordinate and what's your flexibility is?
Not much.
Not much, okay. So I will
No,
try and
no.
coordinate with the two of you and then it sounds like everybody else was fairly flexible.
And again, if you all go and notes are taken and the shared with us and we brought up to speed, then I don't see where it
Okay.
affects further meetings, in my opinion.
No, okay, I just
done
want to make sure
before.
that that point is, yeah. Okay, then I will schedule, I'll coordinate with the two of you.
Yeah, we could get a couple of photos. Send them to them too,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Yeah, and when would be the site plan review meeting?
If we can do it for I think February 5th is the next meeting. Ideally, we'll do it then. Is there what is the timeline?
Well,
How
similar
much
to
of a-
the school, we won't, the town gets busy, the town uses this parking lot for its downtown merchants. We want to be respectful of downtown merchants. So we've got to put this out on the street and do it in April, May before before it gets crazy.
Right,
So
right.
we're not going to be doing it in June, July or August.
That's,
Just not fair to the.
Isn't
yeah,
this
to the
when the
residents.
town's doing their big parking lot, back parking lot extravaganza?
unclear.
Okay. It doesn't
Again,
really
same as
matter.
the school, I think if we were to have our site visit and all of that, I think
Yep.
that we would be in a good spot for February 5th to.
We have most of the information that you'll need, but it's
Right.
not
I
gonna take us
think,
much to turn it around.
Yeah,
And this time we will provide
It works out, Mike.
paper copies. We were told just send
I
electronic.
think we should be able to.
Well, it just was,
It-
so these things were just so hard to
Hard to read,
really.
no, we'll provide.
Yeah.
Is this a
Right.
good size for you,
Paper
or do you
copies?
want the larger size?
No.
Be like 11 by 17?
These are,
I can usually.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So we'll make sure that you get.
I had
those in
said-
advance.
No,
No,
we might need to-
Mondays or Fridays.
For the meeting?
Free, but
The hard copies,
No, I'm talking
a week
about application
ahead
material.
of time.
If I have to update anything or provide additional info, I want to make sure I can get it to you in time.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and do my review off of this and let you know if there's anything else I need.
Okay,
So that way
okay.
we can just do it as quickly as
We can turn it.
Okay,
Okay.
possible. Perfect.
We'll shoot for the February 5th.
and red oaks are really boring trees.
What do you like?
What about lindens? Or something, you know.
Talk to the landscape architect.
Would be nice. The red oaks all died, along the park.
Finding
They don't
more and
seem to
more
be-
trees that you can't use. It's unfortunate, like the elms and everything else.
Well,
So
we
that's
just-
why I'm always looking.
There's a really nice, by Weatherbird, there's a really beautiful linden
Yeah.
right in the neighborhood there. I don't know.
I'll check with part of it too. And we did talk to the landscape architect about something that would be golf farmer and
Right.
everything else.
I know that is
So,
the problem.
So
But
if,
there shouldn't be a lot of salt. Well, the ocean's right there,
Yeah.
so sorry.
so I'll check with the landscape architect and if Lyndon fits the bill.
I don't know. I just,
And then a sign that says Jenny's Park.
There we go.
and if you can just, condense that, I'd like to have a wider park.
Okay.
I'm very excited about the park
Good.
idea,
So we,
even though I seemed a little negative. And
I mean, so
I
the,
just,
so
I have spent a lot of time right into the spot.
so then you're a resident expert, because we were going back and forth, but we didn't have the resident expert. Picnic table or benches, what would get used? I mean, part of it was a family goes there with their sandwiches, they want to sit on the picnic table, or is it someone who wants to just sit there and have a sandwich sitting on a bench looking? So it's 50-50.
I
We
think
were,
it's nice to have we don't have any picnic tables downtown, not really. yeah.
Neither in the 25-foot, right, Michael?
But not a.
You know,
But I think a
Right.
picnic table would be really great because we
That's-
don't have any picnic tables
Yeah.
downtown.
I think probably the solution is to not put picnic tables on your site plan
and then they just show up
and then,
and they come out in the window. Yep. I understand.
that way,
Well, you could be removing all the benches down there by the back parking lot.
uh-huh.
You're taking them babies out, 'cause they haven't been there that
I
long.
just want to be clear that these aren't my opinions, that I don't want these structures there, okay? These are,
I like your last option.
No, I like the pocket park. I think that I've spent some time out there. It's a cool little corner.
Well, there's a surprising amount of, you can see all kinds of ducks out there.
Yeah.
I've seen otters out there.
Wow. Oh,
One time I threw a rock and hit an eel, actually.
wow.
well, that's,
Oh, boy.
Oh.
That's
Don't
Jenny.
let fishing game. Don't let
you know,
fishing
this is
game
being
find out.
recorded.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Linda has a question.
The whole packet? Absolutely.
see in front of you. Thank you.
Sure. We appreciate your time and we'll see you in
Yeah,
February.
I'll follow up with
Thank you.
whatever else I will need for the
Perfect.
reviews.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, take care.
I will try, we don't need to go through the land use, changes to the land use ordinance right now. Basically, this was for LD 2003, which you hopefully have heard of. It basically has to do with housing. It's the state's way of dealing with housing, and we have to comply with it by basically July 1st. This list on the front is questions, things that I started saying for myself, what to address. There's certain things we have to deal with, like affordable housing. The state basically says like you have to allow for affordable housing, and you have to allow for, more density. I think it's like 2.5 times, which I think is a little extreme, but that's not up to me. There's that. There is accessory dwelling units. We basically have to allow one per property, more or less, assuming that
We already do, don't we?
we do. There are some restrictions on those that I'm not sure would pass a test currently, but when this goes into effect, LD 2003, I don't think it would. We can't have some of those restrictions.
So these have to be passed by July 1st? So they have.
Well, not necessarily everything that's in here, but what I will say about LD 2003 is it's not super clear. So this is kind of like my best attempt, start at updating our ordinance so that we comply with LD 2003. There's any number of ways we could go about it. I think that I'm trying to hit a balance of like clear, but not and compliant. So there's some things where I'm like, we may as well allow a little bit more so that when people come into the town, we don't have to be like, well, you're doing that, a laundry list of questions for them.
So does it have to be on the June ballot?
We should probably, I think we should just get it in there as soon as possible. If we put it on the June ballot, we can do that. If we can do it sooner, great. Because there's a certain process that has to happen to be on the town meeting, because everything has to be, it could be like early voting and stuff like that. So there's the option that like you can, let's just say, yeah, probably needs to be on the June ballot. It's possible that we can address it sooner. But let's focus on the content, and as soon as we can, we'll get it passed. There's some stuff in here, I'll tell you, like it might seem, go through this. We can talk about it at the next meeting, unless you want to talk about it now. It's up to you.
Next meeting would be good.
Your next meeting, that's what I thought. Go through there. If you have questions, I'm happy to discuss them. So just the 4 things that LD 2003 addresses is affordable housing, ADUs, which are essentially like everybody gets one unit that's invisible to density and parking requirements. You still have to be able to, the like septic, you still have to have the right amount of lot area for septic and stuff, unless you're on sewer, and then obviously that's not it. And then there's also the state basically punted on short-term rentals, but they did say that the towns can regulate short-term rentals and define them however we want. So we can address that. We don't have to. And the other one is depending, they have this weird, like if you're on sewer and water, you get an extra unit. If you're in a growth area, you get an extra unit. So it's like up to 4. They basically got rid of single family zoning. Like you can't just say you're only allowed 1 unit on, in this district. They can say you're allowed 1 unit per acre or 1 unit per 2 acres or 1 unit per 8 acres. So you can regulate density, but you can't just say, regardless of how big your lot is, you're only allowed 1 unit.
So the first 4 bullets that you have.
Yes, for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think with affordable housing, the first thing to do is just define what we're talking about. And the state does kind of define it. I figure we may as well just stay in line with what they've got. That will make, I think, the conversations about how to address affordable housing that much more manageable. For the most part, it's going to be rental housing that's affordable to somebody who's making 80% of the area median income. I think that's what the state has as their standard as well. I don't have what the number is exactly right now. It's not that low. It's surprisingly unaffordable, I guess you could say. For sale housing, it's 120% of the area median income, which you can imagine is going to be even less affordable. But still, there's a max, and that's what's there. We should just, I think, like I said, if we define it, then we can have the conversation about how we want to deal with it. We can't exclude it really anywhere. And anywhere that multifamily housing is allowed, you have to allow affordable housing, and they have standards about how much density they're allowed and how much parking they're allowed. So we can get into that. Address affordable housing density, that's, what I was just talking about. The deed restriction thing is more to protect the town, that if we go and approve something that's going to be affordable housing, or if for some reason we go through like a TIF or something like that, if someone agrees to do affordable housing, they put it on the deed, so that way they can't back out without, I just want to make sure that the town has that kind of control if we're doing that. Allow at least 2 units per lot. That's basically the minimum now. Is if you've got a lot and you meet any of, all the density requirements, plumbing requirements, stuff like that, you're allowed to have a 2nd unit.
So, this deed restrictions.
More of just like recording the affordability aspect somewhere.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that new apartment building that we approved.
Oh, the 55,
It's
the
kind of-
Ledgewood Court.
I mean,
So
usually the financing, the people that are doing the financing have some requirements for affordability.
right. And that usually they, like the state, depending on their financing, they're going to require it. And my attitude tends to be, like the town shouldn't really get involved in the ownership structures or things like that. It's really just if the town gets involved in a project and says, we're going to get into a TIF and do some kind of credit enhancement, or if the town has got has money that they want to put towards, if they want to incentivize some kind of affordable housing thing, that if we define it, and then we should hold the developers to basically the same kind of standards, use the same kind of tools that the state or county or whoever else uses, so that we don't, you don't want a bait and switch kind of situation where we approve something and then they're like, oh, well, you can't hold us to that because whatever.
Right.
So that's more what I'm talking about. And just want to, if we can hammer that out now before we're started dealing with it, then I think it'll be better. ADUs, like I said, there's just the current ADU regulations have more restrictions than we will be allowed to enforce. So, short-term rentals, this is a question, do we want to define what short-term and long-term is? That way we can regulate it or even just track it. Right now, the conversations I've been having with people is like, we should at least have short-term rentals be like register, so we have some idea of how many there are, but we don't even have to do that really. So there's that. That's a question for you. It's a question. I mean, we're going to address hopefully a lot of this in the comp plan as well. I put in here replace the term family with unit or household. Some of that's simply, I mean, I guess it will be more inclusive, but also family. Well, from my real estate training days, you don't say family because that'll get you in trouble. Because it,
Yeah, I get it.
But as far as households, if saying like a single unit and multi-unit, single unit housing, and then also households being the people who occupy it rather than like this, because sometimes it's roommates or whatever it is, right? So I just figured if we're going through, may as well do that. We don't have to do that now. Bed and breakfast, boarding house, hotels, motels. This is where you start blurring the line between units and residential, and we might want to clarify what that is. Mixed residential development and net residential. I put out some comments in here too, so when you read through it, if you have questions or want to know kind of what I was thinking. And the other thing, which I probably don't think we should address now, is separating uses from form and regulation standards. That's just kind of that's a larger conversation I think we should have about where you're allowed to do certain things and then what your buildings are allowed to kind of look like or how tall they're allowed to be. The height of your building shouldn't depend on what you're using it for necessarily. They should be related maybe, but like if we should decide where we want residential buildings, and we should also decide where we want tall or short residential buildings, kind of separately. But so that's everything that's in here. You'll see I tracked all my changes so far. We can go in and this is basically just the existing land use ordinance. So like the land use, I think one of the tables is just blank, and it's just because I didn't have the time to go through and copy all the information into it, but I can. All right, so is there questions on that? Or okay, so we'll dive into that hopefully more next week. The planner's report, we already talked about 40 Main Street comp plan. The only thing I want to mention is Tuesday, January 16th and Saturday, January 20th are public workshops that hopefully everybody will come to. One of them is the same meeting twice, just to give people who are busy Tuesday evening a chance to attend Saturday morning and vice versa. Community Resilience Partnership, which hopefully you'll remember is a grant program that we're getting into. We're very close. I think there is a resolution the select board would need to pass, would be the last hurdle for us to, get our complete application in. It's a grant program. We can get like $50,000 3 times every 2 years for a wide range of things, mostly around, sustainability and climate actions. Ordinance maintenance. I want to reiterate, I have not forgotten about the site plan review ordinance, but there's a state deadline on the LD 2003 stuff. So, and I haven't had a chance. I've been very busy. I haven't had a chance to make more progress on that, but I will try to make more progress on the site plan review as soon as I have a moment. TIF, that was the other maybe big thing. This is kind of what we're working towards right now. This is the map. That blue area is what's existing. The red area is the conversation that I've been having with Andy. And I assume he's been having the same conversation with the select board, is what we may want to expand it to. We can get into the whole conversation about TIF and what it does. And
TIF was just on Damariscotta, Maine.
Apparently not. Apparently it's that blue area is what's currently in the TIF now.
The rice field?
I believe so.
Yep.
That's what I saw that as what was approved. Yeah, those and that corner. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this would have happened before for me. Oh, well, it definitely happened
It's
before me,
done.
but-
It was done to ensure that there was money for sidewalks. I mean, the way this TIF is organized,
Mhm.
it seems like if I was a town manager, I would say, I want to have as much flexibility of money, tax money coming in that I don't want it designated for sidewalks, all this tax money.
Or you mean, well, so
Or put it.
if you're gonna do a TIF, you have to kind of identify projects. I agree, like we should define these projects as broadly as we can, but obviously EDA, they review and approve everything. They're kind of, there's only certain things that you can use TIF money for. Mostly they're capital projects.
But it's just existing. It's not like extra money. It's not, TIFs are kind of weird.
Yeah,
Why are we
well,
even doing them?
so the advantage that a TIF gives you is you essentially cut out county and the state and schools. So you basically don't give them their share of whatever tax money's coming from that
Okay,
property.
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's the difference. And it's
So it's like 20% probably.
right. Now, to be fair, it's not like the state and the county and the schools don't get made whole. It's just that when the state goes to calculate how much money, we basically hide it from the state when they're doing their calculations. So when the school or the county or the state come and levy the taxes that you see on your tax bill, they basically
Not counting.
they don't see any new development on here. That whatever's existing, they continue to tax and that they get their share of that. But if you put a new building on there, the town just gets to keep all of it. And the state doesn't see that when they do their like state aid and school need it's not called profit sharing, but close.
Yeah.
Tax sharing, revenue sharing. So it does end up working. Usually it works out well for the town because we get to be a little bit selfish with our tax revenue. So it doesn't provide a huge benefit, but it can provide some.
It could potentially provide
Right.
a lot of benefit if there was
If there's development
an
there.
awful lot of development.
Yeah. And so that's why I can tell you that the point of including these two tax parcels down here where Ledgewood Court is and where it would expand to and where Clippership was going to go. I mean, if maybe they still go there, I don't know, but was basically like, if we know there's development happening, put a TIF on it and we get to keep more of that tax revenue. That's kind of the same idea with the rest of the areas that are on here. Is basically, if we can get some development going in there, then we'll get it. We'll get that tax revenue. I would say
So TIFs have to be done before there's development?
yes. Yeah, and this is a little bit like we're chasing some development that we think might happen. So usually they're kind of designed where like you get a developer in and they work with you and you say, oh, we'll build you sidewalks and with TIF money that basically they would be getting that they would, be paying anyway. We can go, they're a little bit weird and I'm more than happy to go through them all, but I know it's getting late, so I don't want to go down this rabbit hole now, but I want to answer any questions you might have of it. The other thing I should say is we're not just planning on expanding the footprint, it's also updating the projects that we can spend TIF money on. Because again, you have to define those before you implement the TIF, or you have to amend it. And it's basically just updating it for current needs, like we talked about sidewalks and things like that.
And this has to go before town.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I assume it may not have to come to the planning board for review officially, but
Is there gonna be a public hearing on it?
yeah, no, in order to adopt or amend a TIF program, we need to have the legislative body, which is the residents, has to go to town meeting. They would have to vote on it and approve it.
I mean,
So-
you're basically taking the prime development land of Damariscotta and putting it all into a TIF and really restricting the use of that. I mean, maybe you're saving 20%, you know, if that's a good number.
Yeah, it might be, it could be, well, it's of the tax revenue,
Yeah.
because that's the thing, it's like when you, I mean, I don't think Damariscotta's tax rate's even 2%, but you're basically taking 2% of the value of that land every year, and so it can be a large number for like the municipal budget, but it's not as though you get like you get $10 million worth of investment, you're getting, $1 million every year. It's, it's
I don't
less
know,
than that, so.
Oh, well,
I think TIF,
wisdom of TIFs.
that's, I think that there's a larger conversation about TIFs that we should have, and I'm happy to do it. I probably should do something just for the public as well, because it's just, TIFs are weird, and they're kind of, once it clicks, you're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense, and you can understand how and why you would do it. Until then, it does seem like a little bit of a shell game, because to be fair, it is, except that you're cutting the schools and the state and the county out, so.
They were real popular at one point,
And
and then they fell into disfavor,
because, yeah, people like to abuse
and then they
things.
got reorganized.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is TIFs are interesting.
It's a tool.
Hmm.
It's a tool that if it makes sense, we should use, and if it doesn't, we should not.
Matt Lucas had an information evening once for anyone that wanted to come, and he completely explained them and went through for the public. It was very helpful.
I think we should do something similar.
You can call him back as guest speaker.
I'm working on doing something similar, just generally in Newcastle, of just kind of being like, here's your zoning, here's how it works. And, one night, and maybe do a tip thing the next, once a quarter kind of thing. Here's your comp plan. Here's why we have a comp plan. So that way people
Good idea.
know when to be involved, and,
Mhm.
I want to kind of pull the curtain back as to how all of this works, because it's funny. All right, I sent you all an email about getting together individually. If you're available and willing, I would love it. If you haven't gotten back to me, feel free anytime. I'm flexible and eager. So I know this time of year can be busy, but the only other thing I wanted to say is the next planning board meeting's on February 5th. That's a Monday. I put the remaining dates on here. March 12th, we had to move because there was an election on the actual the first Tuesday. So we can't use this room because of the election. So I moved it back, and I moved it to a Tuesday. Or would you like to move it to a Tuesday, to the 12th? You have to reschedule it, so.
Either one.
Okay. So then I will notice that. I assume that April 1st it would work for everybody. That is the day after Easter. Some people, observe Easter Monday. I wanted to just make sure that was not going to interrupt anybody's plans. Okay. So then I think April 1st, May 6th, and June 3rd are all regular first Mondays of the month. That should get us through the remainder of the fiscal year here. And
Let it be known I'll miss my first meeting then.
which is that?
May 6th.
May 6th, you're gonna miss it? Okay.
First
won't-
one.
We won't
First one.
advertise it.
Wow.
Yep,
We'll keep it low key.
I might see, I mean, that's first one, Wild. I might have to see if we can get that one moved.
You can zoom, you can zoom.
No,
Well,
not a
Right.
big deal. I'm just busting.
that's, yeah, I mean,
We all done?
that's all except, yes,
Schedule that site visit.
I need to reschedule that, but it sounds like,
It sounds like mornings is,
and I'll talk to you
Mondays
too.
and Fridays, I'm clear at
Okay.
this time of year, but sorry, it's not very much.
Not
No,
pretty
that's-
good most of the time, so
That's what, okay,
if she's good with Mondays and Fridays,
Yeah.
in the morning.
shoot me, if you get a date that works, then
That's what I'll do.
shoot me a message, and then I will confirm with work
Okay.
and
Mhm.
we'll
I
make it
mean,
work.
do them at the same time, like
We
One at
probably could
9
do
and
one
at
after the
10
other.
Or something.
Yeah, if is that preferable to you all, we can certainly do that.
Get it done.
Yeah, okay.
It'd be nice if
Not
it could
really
be
other.
in January.
I will, yes, well, if we want the Bangor, if we're gonna get them on the February meeting, we'll have to do it before the 5th, basically,
Right.
so I'm gonna try and do it then. Okay,
And you gotta get it posted and we gotta do that.
the newspaper, yeah, which we should have
week or
time
2
for.
weeks,
I gotta check,
Cause we're gonna be running into the tail end of January here
Yep.
pretty quick.
yep. Yes, because I don't think I can get it in for this week's paper,
Yep.
but see. We'll see.
Get it next week.
We'll definitely get it next week, yeah. So I will check on that, but I'll work
Cool.
on it and I'll let you know, but Neil, I'll follow up with you on dates for those.
Yep.
So,
All right, do I have a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Those opposed? Thanks, Mike.